Hello and welcome to this video. I'm very excited about this video because it is the first of several Bridgerton related videos. If you've been to my channel before, you may know that I did a whole series about Bridgerton when season 3 came out. So now that season 4 is upon us, it's time for another Bridgerton video series. Starting with the recap of the corresponding book, which is called An Offer from a Gentleman. Now, I'm going to go over the whole story of this book, okay? So if you don't want any spoilers, this isn't the video for you. We're going to talk plot. I'm going to share my thoughts and my predictions for season 4 with you after I share the plot. Let's get into it. You may have heard that this is a Cinderella retelling, and it is in a way, but all the Cinderella goodness is in the first 2 chapters of the book, in which we are introduced to a young Sophia Beckett. She is the bastard daughter of a nobleman, and he takes her in as a baby, raises her, gives her a place to live, food to eat, gets her a governess. And while he's not very affectionate or loving, he does at least provide for her. And when she is 10, this nobleman, who's her father, gets married and introduces her as his ward to his new wife and his wife's 2 daughters. Immediately upon meeting Sophie, though, her new stepmother knows. She knows that Sophie is the daughter of this man, and she's upset by that. And so even though Sophie was hoping that this would change her father, make him more of a family man, make him more loving, and now she has sisters, and she was hoping for this idyllic little family situation, it's not that. The stepmother character refuses to let her daughters interact with Sophie until he dies when Sophie is 14, and in his will he says that he will leave money to the stepmother and her daughters, but just barely enough to get by on. But if the stepmother will take care of Sophie and continue to provide for Sophie, then he will leave her more money. He will triple the amount of money that he's left her. And she finds a loophole and she's like, fine, I'll take care of Sophie if she becomes my maid. Fast forward many years, Sophie has been a maid for her stepmother and stepsisters for several years now, and there's a big ball. The Bridgertons are throwing a masquerade ball, and it's just the buzz of the town. It's the buzz of this household. And after Sophie's helped each of these 3 women get ready for the ball, she is talking to some of her other servant friends, and it's just like, I want to go too. The other servants are like, well, you should. Well, you shall go to the ball. So they find an old dress, an old but beautiful dress, and they send her to the ball, and they just say, hey, leave before midnight. So there's the Cinderella story. She meets Benedict at the ball. They fall in love instantaneously. Love at first sight. The angels are singing as their eyes lock on each other for the first time. It's a whole moment. It's a whole thing. They talk. She says she can't dance, so they go off on a little private terrace, and they're talking, and he teaches her to dance, and oh my goodness, it's so cute and romantic. And then at midnight, she runs away. And she decides that night that she is done working for her stepmother and stepsisters. She decides to run away. So she does. She runs away, and that's the end of the Cinderella part of this story, and also the end of chapter 2. Now, there's a time jump. We skip forward 2 years. Benedict Bridgerton he's at a party that some friend told him about. It's just a really sleazy party, and he doesn't want to be there anymore. And as he's leaving, he sees 3 men trying to get their way with a maid who clearly doesn't want to have anything to do with any of these men. And so Benedict jumps in and is like, what's going on here? I don't think this maid wants to be treated this way. Stop this. The maid in this situation is Sophie, and she recognizes him. She's like, oh my gosh, my knight in shining armor, Benedict Bridgerton, oh my goodness, So he stops these men from having their way with her. In so doing, gets her fired from her position at this house and says, hey, you know what? My mother is always needing a new maid. She would be happy to have you. Let me take you to London and you can work for my mother. I'm sorry I lost your job. So they leave. It starts to rain. Benedict has just recovered from a cold, and because it starts to rain, he starts to get sick, and so they stop at his country house. And they are there for like a week because he's like too unwell, too sick to drive into London. Yeah, so they're there for a week. They're chilling. She's taking care of him. The last day that they are at Benedict's country house, He has recovered quite a bit, and he decides to go for a swim in his pond that he has. He decides to go skinny dipping in the pond, and here Sophie is just strolling along through the garden, through the little estate, and she happens to see Benedict skinny dipping in the pond. And then he happens to notice that she sees him skinny dipping, and he's like, "Hey, get back here," as she's about to run away, embarrassed. And he's like, "No, don't you dare. We're gonna walk back to the house together." They're walking back to the house together. They almost kiss. Or they do kiss. They have a moment. They have a moment together. They're gazing into each other's eyes. He says, "Stay with me. I want you. Be my mistress." And she says, "No. No, thank you. That's not for me." She storms off to the house. He's following her. And they get back to the house. She packs her things and she says, "I'm leaving." And he says, "No, you're not. I know what's best for you. I know what's best for you." And she's like, "Well, I don't want to be your mistress, so I'm not staying with you anymore." And he's like, "Fine, you can work for my mother, like I told you." She's thinking like, no, this isn't going to end well, but whatever. She lets him take her into London to his mother's house. And as soon as she meets Lady Bridgerton, she's like, "Okay, actually, this seems like a really nice place to work. Maybe I'll stay." So she stays. She's working for Lady Bridgerton. Benedict keeps coming around for tea just so that he can like get glimpses of her and try and like catch her in little alcoves and like closets at his mother's house and be like, "Are you sure you want to keep doing this maid thing? Because, I just live down the street and, you could come just like live with me." And she says no, like, "No, thank you. I won't." One of these times that he's visiting, Sophie happens to go out in the front yard of the house or something, and she hears her stepmother yelling. And she's like, "Whoa, what's happening? What's happening right now? How is she here?" And then she realizes that Lady Bridgerton lives next door to her stepmother and her two stepsisters. And so she runs back inside, white as a sheet, looks freaked out. Benedict is about to leave through the front door and sees her just like freaking out. And he's like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" And then he decides to just drag her to his house, and they do the deed at his house after she has been freaked out by the fact that her stepmother lives next door to the Bridgertons. So they do, after their romantic rendezvous, Benedict tries again and says, "Will you be my mistress? We've just done the thing. You know what it's like. You seem to enjoy it. Wouldn't you like to have more of that?" And she says, "No, I don't want to be your mistress. That was enjoyable. That was great. And I love you so much, but I will not be your mistress. It's never going to happen." And so she quickly leaves, goes back to his house. And at this point, Benedict actually starts to believe that like maybe when she says no, it means no. And he gets all pissy about it. And so he doesn't show up to tea with his mother for enough time that his siblings begin to notice. And they're like, "It's weird that Benedict hasn't come around recently. Where is he?" And his mother like reaches out and is like, "Benedict, are you dead? Hello, you need to come visit your mother. I'm worried about you." So he finally comes to visit her. As he's leaving, he sees Sophie again, but she's playing with some little kids. She's playing a game where she's blindfolded and has something covering the top half of her face. And he sees her that way and he's like, "My Cinderella, my mystery woman, my dream girl, the love of my life has been this maid this whole time." And then he starts yelling at her for not telling him the truth about who she really was. And now he's like, "Who are you really? You're not a maid. You're blah, 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 blah. I know who you are. I know what's best for you. You can't possibly be this." And she's just like, "No, I am a maid. And yes, I was also at that ball too. And no, I won't be your mistress." And so he gets all mad and storms off. And Sophie realizes that she, as much as she loves working here for Lady Bridgerton and Eloise and Francesca, she can't stay because Benedict is always going to be there. And now that he is mad at her, it's broken her heart. And so she goes to Lady Bridgerton and says, I've loved working here, but I need to leave." Lady Bridgerton, being the amazing observant mother that she has known the entire time. From the very moment that Benedict walked in with this maid, she knew that there was something between them. She knew that they were in love. And Lady Bridgerton's like, "Fine, I'm sorry to see you go, but if you have to go, at least take my carriage. Go wait out in front. The carriage will come around and will come pick you up and take you wherever you want to go." So she goes out in the front yard And again, her stepmother reappears and sees her this time. Sees her standing in front of the Bridgerton's house, drags her out onto the street, starts yelling and screaming about how this maid stole from me, lock her up, put her in jail, she's a danger to everybody she works for, get her out of here. And a constable comes running up, puts handcuffs on Sophie and drags her away to jail. The next morning, Benedict is feeling so conflicted and upset, and he doesn't know what to do. And he's talking to Colin, and Colin is like, oh, it's a woman, isn't it? Well, you seem like you're in love, so maybe this woman's worth it. And Benedict is like, well, I don't know. And so he goes to talk to his mom after talking to Colin, and is like, I'm in love with this girl, but she's from a different class. And his mom's like, yeah, I know you're in love with Sophie. I don't care. If you want to marry her, go for it. But just know that people around here, other people outside of our family, won't get it. They will say things about you, but like, I don't care. I want you to be happy. Do whatever you want. But just know Sophie left yesterday. And not just left, but disappeared. I don't know where she is. In comes Francesca and Eloise twittering about the latest Lady Whistledown, in which it says a young woman, an unknown young woman, was arrested just outside of the Bridgerton household yesterday afternoon. And they're like, it's Sophie, it's Sophie, it's Sophie, she got arrested. How could this happen? What's going on? And so immediately, Benedict and Lady Bridgerton run off to the jail to save Sophie, to bail her out of jail. The evil stepmother who shows up at the jail to gloat at Sophie and be like, ha ha ha, I knew I would see you again and I would get you, and like, I hate you because you're his daughter, and like, my daughters aren't his daughters, and I couldn't have kids with him, and like, I don't know, something like that. And Benedict and Lady Bridgerton, and they're like, hey, you might outrank us, but we're more popular in this town, so people will believe us over you. And if your story doesn't align with ours, you're going to get kicked out of town. So you might as well just agree with us that, like, Sophie is a cousin of your husband, and she is noble. And when she and Benedict get married next week, you better be there, and you better be telling everybody that she's not a maid, that she is noble, of noble birth, she's a gentleman's daughter, and then you can do whatever you want with your life. But if you say anything bad about Sophie around here ever again, just know that we're going to use our power and influence of over the ton against you. And that shuts up. That shuts up the evil stepmother. They get Sophie out of jail. Benedict and Sophie are going to get married, and they get married, and then they live happily ever after. The end. Now that you understand the plot of this book, I'm going to share my thoughts with you on everything. First off, the whole Cinderella part being in the first 2 chapters of the book and then the rest of the book being its own thing felt a little bit weird. It felt like 2 separate stories. It felt like 2 completely separate stories. And also that time jump in between the 2 doesn't help the fact that they feel like 2 completely different stories. The characters feel like completely different characters. They're a little bit on a high because of this whole magical situation, right? So I can give them a pass for being a little bit different there because it's like this situation. It's a situation that is heightening emotions, that is heightening a lot. But it's just, yeah, it's still, the rest of the book feels so like a letdown. I'm sorry. It feels like a letdown because we have this magical night right at the beginning. And that's what we're expecting from our characters. You know, Sophie's being really like coy and witty and like it's kind of cute and she's flirting and like Benedict is flirting and is kind and is like all this stuff. And then we get into the rest of the book and Sophie is not very witty. She's very timid, very kind of flat as a character, honestly, if I'm being honest. I get that part of that is because she's a maid and she doesn't want to be, like, speak out of turn, be out of place. Like, she's trying to appease the, like, class hierarchy. I understand that we're in a different situation now. Like, Benedict fell in love with this version of her that was, like, coy and witty and all this stuff. It seems implausible to me that he would fall in love with her again, especially since, like, as she's falling in love with him, she's nursing him back to health, all of this stuff, she's falling more in love with him. But the entire time, he's just thinking about his Cinderella girl. And he's like, oh man, wouldn't it be nice if this were my like dream Cinderella love of my life girl instead of this poor maid who is so helpless in the world taking care of me. He keeps thinking stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, so how does he fall in love with her? Like, I get that she's the same person, actually, but she's acting so different now because she's a maid and she has to be a maid and she doesn't want to upset the hierarchy or whatever. And she's so adamant about that. Like Benedict keeps saying, call me, you know, you can call me by my name. Like we're friends, whatever. I'm going to help you out. And she's like, no, you are Mr. Bridgerton and I am going to serve you tea and I am going to bring you your breakfast in bed and I am going to do these things and I'm not going to act like that because I am a maid. And so I'm like, how does he fall in love with her? I wanted there to be more searching. That's a part of the Cinderella story, is like the prince searching for her, right? And Benedict mentions once, maybe twice, that he was searching for his mysterious Cinderella girl, but we don't see that. And I wish it would have been shown and not told. And also, going back to the whole Cinderella thing and then the rest of the book feeling like a completely different story, if we're going to lean so hard into the Cinderella thing at the beginning, then I want to see the searching. But I also want the reunion to be a little bit magical. When they see each other again, I want there to be like a pause. Even if like they're unsure, like Benedict is unsure of who this girl is, I want there to be a, she looks familiar. Why does she look familiar? Her hair. Have I seen hair like that before? But no, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I just saved a maid. Let's go. I'll go get you a job in my mom's house. Okay, cool. That's it. There's no magic to the reunion. Also, Benedict seems to have no interest in Sophie whatsoever until all of a sudden he does. Like, it's a very sudden, no real explanation. He's just like, oh yeah, this girl has been taking care of me for all this time. She like basically saved my life and I haven't even thought twice about her. Until now, as I'm swimming naked in a pond and I see her looking at me, now all of a sudden I'm into her romantically. Like, I don't know. It was very sudden and like very randomly placed. And then he's like, I need you, be my mistress. And I'm like, what? What about this makes sense? Speaking of the whole skinny dipping episode, I did laugh. That was one of the moments that I like... I had fun with in this book. I was laughing when Sophie sees him and she's like, I kind of want to stay and watch him because damn, but also it's improper. I should leave. Oh my gosh, should I go? Should I leave? Should I go? Should I leave? And she's just like sitting here like trying to decide what to do, and then he catches her. Like that moment right there, that moment was funny to me and I laughed. So that's a moment I liked. After that, I did not like it. As I said, Benedict thinks he knows what's best for this girl that he doesn't know because he hasn't gotten to know her at all, period. But I think that's kind of an example, or like I liked moments in this book. There were moments, a couple of moments sprinkled throughout the book that I liked, but the overall book I didn't like. I wasn't having fun. I hate Benedict in this book. Now I've watched all 3 seasons of the show so far, and I have to say that the show Benedict seems very different, so I feel good about that, but I hate Benedict in the book. Hate him. Absolute, like he is the worst. He's just telling Sophie that he knows what's best for her, that she needs to be his mistress, and like that's what's best for you. And it's like, you don't know this girl. You met her a week ago. You haven't asked her about herself other than what's your name. And he doesn't ask, he comments, oh, you don't sound like a normal housemaid. That's interesting. And she responds and is like, oh yeah, well, you know, when I was younger, I worked for a family that was very kind and very generous, and they let me take some lessons with their kids. And that's it. Sophie, I like, but beyond being a Cinderella archetype, there's not much to her. I hated the power imbalance between the two. Not just that like she's a maid and he's a gentleman or whatever, but also when it comes, like this came up in the Penelope and Colin story too, but this whole like, I'm a man, so I know what women like in bed and I know how to do things and you don't because you're a woman and you're a virgin, and like, ew, gross. I hated that in both books. I hated it in both books. I also hated that in both books they both throw these like little manly temper tantrums, hissy fits, like, and it's the same. It happens at the same like percentage point through the book. They act out in like the same way. They like storm off, they start yelling, they say I can't trust you. That part of the 2 books is the exact same. And when I say 2 books, I mean Benedict's book and Colin's book. If we continue through the story, through the end of the story, another moment that I somewhat enjoyed, it was absurd. It was a little bit absurd. The whole ending with the jail and the whatever, like that was just kind of like out there. And I'm like, wow, if this happens in the show, I feel like this would ruin the show for me. But given that this is just the book, and the book already is just this thing that like is kind of ridiculous in a bad way, not in a good way, unfortunately, I don't mind that we're ending in this just completely crazy way. So that was a moment where I was like, sure, of course, why not? Give it to me. Yeah, Sophie goes to jail. Sure. Benedict and his mom break her out. Cool. Sure. This I wasn't expecting, but I like it. I like that I wasn't expecting it. And I also liked that one of the stepsisters stands up for Sophie at that point. Could she have stood up for Sophie earlier? Yes, she could have, but at least she stands up at this point. Kind of reminds me of the stepsister in Ever After. Like just the way that she's described as a character, like her physical features and look, and then also the fact that she's kinder to Sophie than the other sister just completely reminds me of Ever After. Like actually legitimately, Julia Quinn was just like, oh cool. Yeah, copy paste. I didn't really much enjoy everything after the Cinderella part. There were some moments, but like overall, didn't really like it. I'd say it's like a 2-star book for me. Yeah, so the book overall, not a huge fan, but I think it will be interesting to see how they adapt this book for season 4. One thing, I think Benedict is going to be much more likable, and I can't wait for that. I hope they give Sophie a little bit more personality, a little bit more spunk, maybe a little feistiness. So I think already the show is off to a better start because Benedict is so much more likable in the show. I've seen the trailer, and I know there are lots of parts in the trailer correspond with the book, but one thing that doesn't appear in the trailer is Benedict being sick and Sophie nursing him back to health. And that's something that I'm interested to see. I wonder if they're going to put that in the show or if they somehow wrote that out of the show. I'm curious to see how that plays out. It seems like there's a lot in this trailer that is pulled from the book, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to follow the book completely. There was another thing in the trailer that I think is Lady Bridgerton and her love interest that was introduced in the last season. And I'm gonna be honest, I want Violet to be happy. Lady Bridgerton is a great mom and she's a great character. I love her, and I want her to be happy, but I don't care to see her love story. I don't really care to see Colin and Penelope too much. I wouldn't mind seeing Francesca and John Sterling. They were featured in the trailer, so I think they'll probably make an appearance, but their appearance makes less sense because they live in Scotland now, and I'm like, why? Shouldn't you be in Scotland? But I do love Francesca. If you watched my last Bridgerton reaction video for season 3, you know I love Francesca. I hope to see Kate and Anthony because I love them so very much, but I also understand if they aren't in this season. Oh, I want there to be searching. Please let there be some searching. But I think that's likely to happen because there is a clip in the trailer where Benedict says, like, I need to find this girl, or like something like that. He's talking to Eloise, I think. And so I'm hopeful that we do get an episode, or at least half of an episode, of him searching for her. I want to see the searching, the yearning. I want to see it. I don't want to just be told about it. I want to see it. I think the show, so far from what I've seen, I'm hopeful for it. I'm excited to share my thoughts and feelings about it with you once it actually comes out next week. So I'm so excited. Now that is the end. Okay, that is the end of our recap, my thoughts, my feelings, my predictions. I would love to know what you think about this. What are your predictions for season 4? Let me know down in the comments below. Let's talk about it, please. I need to talk about it with somebody. So let me know. Also, while you're down there in that general area of the page and you want to see more of my Bridgerton content that will be coming out over the next few weeks, hit the subscribe button so you can see all of that. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening to me ramble about books, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!